3 stories came through this week. All from different states. All from different people. But they share something, a feeling that starts small, almost reasonable, and then becomes something you cannot unfeel. Stay with me. The man who learned my schedule. I worked the closing shift at a pharmacy in Tucson, Arizona. This was February of last year, still cold enough at night that the parking lot felt emptier than it was. I noticed him the 3rd week of January. Not because he did anything alarming. He just came in every Tuesday and Thursday at 8:47 p.m. Always bought the same thing, the bottle of Gatorade, the orange kind, and a pack of gum. He'd pay cash. He never looked at me directly, but he never looked away either. That middle distance. Like he was watching me through frosted glass. I mentioned it to my coworker Dana. She laughed and said I had too much time to think on closing shifts. She wasn't wrong. I let it go. Then he started coming in on Sundays. My Sunday shift started at 4 p.m. He'd show up at 4:12. Same Gatorade. Same gum. Same middle distance look. I changed my schedule in February. Picked up a Wednesday morning shift, dropped Sundays. I didn't tell anyone why. He showed up Wednesday at 9:06 a.m. I went to my manager. She pulled the security footage going back 6 weeks. He was in the parking lot on 17 days we hadn't even seen him come inside. Just sitting in a white Ford F-150 in the 2nd row. Engine off. Sometimes for 40 minutes. We called the police. They came, took a report, told us there wasn't much they could do, he hadn't threatened anyone, hadn't trespassed. They took his plate number from the footage. The plate came back to a man who had died in Pima County in 2019. The officer looked at his own notepad when he told me that. He read it twice. Then he told me to make sure I wasn't walking to my car alone. That was the last time I saw him in the store. But 2 weeks later, I found an orange Gatorade bottle on the hood of my car in my apartment complex parking lot. The cap was still on. It was still cold. My apartment is 11 miles from that pharmacy. I never figured out how he knew which car was mine. I never figured out who he was. The police didn't follow up after the first report. I moved to Phoenix in April. I still check the parking lot before I leave anywhere. Every time. I don't think I'll ever stop. The next story comes from North Carolina, and what makes it disturbing isn't just what was taken, but what was left behind. She knew which window was mine. I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, in the spring of 2022. I was 28, newly divorced, starting over in a city I'd visited once on a weekend trip and loved enough to take a risk on. I found a second-floor apartment in a converted house on Merriman Avenue. Big windows. Good light. I thought the light was the best thing about it. The note started appearing in June. At first, just one slipped under my front door. Handwritten on the back of a grocery receipt. It said, "You look peaceful when you read **, no name. No return address. Nothing else." I told myself it was a neighbor being odd. Maybe someone who'd seen me on the porch. The second note came a week later. This one said, "The blue lamp looks nice at night. My blue lamp was in my bedroom. It sat on my nightstand, on the side of the room that faced the back alley, not the street." I started closing the blinds. The third note, slipped under my door again, said, "You don't have to do that. I filed a police report. The officer walked the exterior with me. In the alley behind the house, directly below my bedroom window, there was a cleared patch in the gravel. smooth, like something had been set there. Repeatedly. A ladder, she thought, from the marks. Or a step stool. They canvassed the neighbors. Nobody had seen anyone. One woman 2 doors down said she'd noticed a car parked in the alley some nights, dark green, older model, she couldn't say the make. She'd assumed it belonged to someone in the building. No more notes came after that. But in August, I came home to find my blue lamp had been moved. It was still on the nightstand. Still plugged in. But it was facing the window now. I had not moved it. I live alone. There was no sign of forced entry. The property manager changed my locks. Added a deadbolt. I put tape over the window seam, childish, maybe, but it made me feel like I'd know. I found the tape broken once. Just once. In September. I moved out at the end of my lease. I left the blue lamp behind. I couldn't explain why, I just didn't want to take it. I still don't know how she got inside. I still don't know how long it had been happening before the first note. The first note was not an introduction. I understand that now. It was a response. The last story tonight is the one that stayed with me longest, because the person being watched wasn't the only one in the house. He used my son's name. My son Caleb was 4 years old the summer this happened. We were living in a rental house in Clarksville, Tennessee. My husband was stationed at Fort Campbell, deployed at the time. It was me, Caleb, and our dog, a big shepherd mix named Hank. Hank stopped sleeping in the hallway in July. He started sleeping against my bedroom door instead. I noticed, but I didn't assign it meaning at first. Dogs change their habits. The first call came on a Tuesday night, just after 9. Unknown number. I answered, a habit from being a military spouse, always answer. Silence on the line. Not dead silence. Ambient silence. Like someone in a room, breathing. I hung up. It called again. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was 43 seconds of that same ambient silence, and then, at the very end, a voice, low and flat, said my son's name. Just Caleb. And then the call ended. I want to be precise about this because I've questioned my own memory. It did not sound like a wrong number. It did not sound like confusion. It sounded like a statement. I called the MPs. They sent someone out. Took the number, ran it, prepaid, purchased in cash at a Walmart in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, 2 weeks prior. Dead end. I called my husband's family. I called my own mother. Everyone had a theory. Nobody had an answer. The call stopped after that first night. 3 weeks went by. I started sleeping better. Then Caleb told me about the man who waved at him through the backyard fence. I asked him when. He said lots of times. He said the man knew his name too. I walked the fence line that afternoon. In one section, behind the overgrown hedgerow, the ground was packed flat, grass worn down to bare dirt. The hedge was disturbed on the inside, branches bent back and held open by the fence wire itself. Like a window, deliberately made. From that spot, you could see Caleb's bedroom window. You could see the swing set. You could see most of the yard. I took Caleb and Hank to my mother's house in Murfreesboro that night. We stayed 6 weeks until my husband came home. The MPs did a follow-up. Nothing was ever found. No one was ever identified. Caleb is 7 now. He doesn't remember the man's face. I've never asked him to describe it. I'm not sure I could carry that answer. 3 people. 3 different states. 3 situations the authorities couldn't resolve, not because they didn't try, but because some of these things don't resolve. They just stop. And you never know why they stopped. If something like this has happened to you, if you've had that feeling, that specific feeling of being known by someone who shouldn't know you, leave it in the comments. This channel exists because of those accounts, and every one of them gets read. If you want more stories like these, subscribe. New ones come through every week. And tonight, before you go to sleep, think about whether your curtains are closed. Really closed.